Hi there and welcome to HerthaMari. I would like to show you how I made a bag for our Ikea portable grill that we find ideal for small little camping trips. First things first is cutting the pattern, at least thinking up the pattern. So I laid the grill in the middle and then drew a circle all around and then just cut it. Of course, leaving a little bit of space to be able to make the seams, and then I did the same with the other side, leaving a bit of space for the seams. So initially I thought to make one side a little bit bigger and then the other side smaller. I did, however, change this, as you will see later. Then the bottom part would be just plain, and then the top part would have a zipper. So I had to cut a big piece for the zipper and a smaller piece for the top. And the top part I split in half, so that's the bottom part, that's the top, where I split that in half, and then make the inner part, which was an old curtain, shower curtain, which was too short for our shower. And whatever I did with the outer layer, I would do with the inner layer. And yeah, there we go. That's basically what all the cutouts look like. Just before I pinned this part, I actually did pin the zipper into the outer fabric as well as the inner, and put it to the side in order for me to be able to wrap it around quite nicely and make sure that it can actually close. And then I started with pinning the inside, and one side as well as the other, making sure that it's on the same level, not skew and everything, seeing as I wanted to use one side to be closed and the other one to have the zipper part. This is where I realized that I don't think that the one side to be bigger would work quite nicely after I pinned this all together, at least. And with regard to the fabric, I actually had to make sure that the silky side, so that it's the easier to wipe side, has to be on the inside of the fabric or of the bag, to actually fulfill its goal of being able to pop it in when it's not being washed so properly, or just standard grill smear, to just be able to wipe that off quite nicely. Yeah, so with circles it's a little bit tricky. I start in the middle and then I go to the side, towards the sides, to make sure it's all good. But once again, I think with regard to the two different sizes, that did throw me off a little bit. Then I pinned the zipper part into the main bag. I found this to be a little bit tricky because I had no pattern or anything, and it was kind of improvisation. I constantly had to make sure that I was using the right side of the fabric, and that it would actually fit and all that. So of course with the lining, it has to be, this will be on the side that the outside is on the inside. So it did make it quite easier when I was doing the zipper with the zipper in already. Oh, that's a little confusing. Sorry. But as you can see, I was contemplating so much whether I was doing the right thing or not. So I just went for it. I found this part to be one of the more difficult parts, actually deciding on how to put it together there, and whether I should sew it in from the start. And yeah, the fabric was just pulling everywhere, the wrong angles. However, because the zipper was already a certain length and I did not want to make it shorter, I did base the outer ring on the size of the actual zipper. The zipper is an old, I repurposed pillowcases to make a blouse, and this is the zipper that I basically salvaged from there, if I can put it like that, and still in great working order. I was like, well, what a perfect way to use it. And yeah, so my expertise aren't to cut a zipper open, so I basically made it a little bit around the zipper. It also made perfect sense at the end, as one can actually put the grill in really neatly without having to struggle that the bag's closing up on you the whole time. Then pinning on the other side, which was supposed to be the larger side of the bag, I had to, of course, now make it a little bit smaller because I didn't think of cutting it smaller earlier. And yeah, so giving a little bit more seam allowance and then eventually cutting that away. I actually repinned the bag, making sure that all the sides were quite nicely done with the grill inside. This would then also make a nice little test run, and then repeat on the other side. In hindsight, I feel there was something I could have done easier to get this done properly. However, I'm a little bit at a loss of ideas. If anyone of you has a good idea on how to actually start and end a bag like this, or as a matter of fact, any bag at all, please leave a comment in the section down below and I'll gladly have a look at it and maybe use that within my next attempt when I ever feel like I want to redo this bag or make another one. Look, I can open! And I have 2 big ears! Yeah! So as soon as I pinned everything together, including the outside part, or at least the outside part without the zipper, I went on to sewing the inner layer and then the outer. Sewing this part, or at least this type of Faux leather, one does need a stronger needle and stronger thread, and the one I was using was intended for these. I had to Google and search for it as I was doing a project for my father, which was reupholstering the dining room chairs. And yeah, then that's also where I got the rest of the fabric. This is basically what was left. So if you intend to make a bag like this as well, and you are using some thicker fabric, then I can definitely recommend to also do some research with regard to threads and so. And sewing the zipper onto the outer layer, I actually removed the inner layer and sewed that onto the inner part already, as I realized if I sew that onto each other so soon, then I won't be able to get the actual inner part into the bag. At least that was my mindset to it. So yeah, I sewed this part on, and then I went on to making the handle. So also using the shower curtain inner part for the handle, even though it didn't need to be wiped, but just to give that little bit more of a strength for the handle. and folding in the seam to make it look nice. This was quite a mission to actually put the pins in, so because it was so thick, I did lose at least 4 of my pins on this section only. And yeah, so I cut the inner lining a little bit away from the end so that I could actually do this fold, not making it too thick and also hiding the inner part. I do think that actually worked quite well. Yeah, and that's how the ends looked. I then sewed the handle part, placed it where I wanted to have it on the bag, and sewed it to the place I wanted it. I am quite happy that I did not put the lining in before doing this, as it makes it a little bit easier to actually sew it on this part without having to damage the inner lining or without having to have the sewing holes or anything like that, making the cleaning later on a little bit easier as well. And I guess I could have also made the handle at first and then sewn it onto this part before doing anything else. However, I was still unsure as to where the handle would go. I was actually considering it being next to the zipper, and I only decided on this place pretty much just before I sewed it on. And then it was time for the final act, putting it all together. Obviously making sure that it is all lined up on the inside and pinning it all together there where the zipper would go. Of course, ensuring that the inner part is folded a little bit, as well as the outer part being folded a little bit to make it nice and neat, and for the inner part not to be too far out so that the zipper doesn't get stuck while doing its rounds. Sewing the zipper on, the zipper on, the zipper on. Well, one thing's for sure, I really have a knack to always put pins on the wrong side of the fabric, or at least showing towards the wrong side. And yeah, having it point towards me instead of pointing towards the machine. I have been doing the same problem for the past few sewing attempts, and that just makes the pricking with the pin so much more frequent. So yeah, if you are making your projects, please try and think of which way your pins are pointing. If they are pointing towards the actual foot of the sewing machine, it's much better, as you're not going to be pricked the entire time as soon as you go a little bit further on. And that's it. There we go. That is it closing and opening quite neatly, obviously without the actual grill inside. And once inside, you can see it fits actually really, really well. It still has enough space to put some crockery in, or a grill tongue or something. And as I was showing, the actual seams came out really nicely too. Ideal for taking along on a camping trip and not having to worry about too much cleaning if the time runs out. It is a little bit more of a mission to close it with the grill inside, because it doesn't have one of those hooks that helps you pull. However, I do think that helps at the end of the day to not make it that hard to, that easy to open accidentally. Something I definitely might try with my next one is to actually make the corners double layer in order to not make it so fluffy and to give it just a bit of a finished look. But you can see it came out really nicely. Thanks for watching.